Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of She Talks Business. I gotta tell you, I was supposed to record this podcast for my team a couple days ago, and I didn't get it done. So it's Saturday morning, and I am getting it done because I believe in showing up and doing what I say I will do, even if I'm a day late. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about 9 random things that can help you in life and business. I was literally having one of those moments where even though I have this 26-week plan for everything that I want to talk about on my podcast, I was feeling uninspired. And so I sat down and I thought, what do I need to share? What could actually be valuable? So I'd like to know if this is helpful for you or not, because it kind of felt like it was a little bit of a download from the universe, and I'm not really that woo of a person, but here's a list of things that I want to share for you. And it's a list of things that I have found to be incredibly useful in my own life in terms of personal and professional happiness and getting the best results that I can get out of my life personally and professionally. So let me go through my list of 9 things, and I'd love for you to share with me which of the 9 most resonates with you. All right, number 1, I'm doing it right now. Show up when you don't feel like it. I am on my way to go grocery shopping. I have a fleece on and a t-shirt on, and the story I was telling myself is I should go change. I should look more professional. I should this, and that. I am shoulding all over myself. You probably do the same thing. There are times when we do not feel like doing the thing that we have committed to doing. And when you learn how to show up when you don't feel like it, your life will change. When you get the walk-in in the morning, when your alarm goes off instead of hitting the snooze button, when you read the book that you said you were going to read, when you take the program, when you show up at the event, when you do the things that you should do, even when you don't feel like it, you will see your world change. And what I've found is that most of the time, showing up when I don't feel like it leads to something really, really incredible, because I actually forced myself to do it even though I didn't feel like it, and I am usually rewarded for that. So when you don't feel like it, ask yourself, is it you don't feel like it, or maybe you just don't feel like starting? But once you start, you'll be amazed at what happens. I used to have a rule when I had a treadmill at our old house in Nova Scotia. I would go downstairs in the morning and all I had to do was get on the treadmill for 2 minutes. And if after 2 minutes I did not feel like doing any more, I was allowed to stop. How often do you think I stopped after 2 minutes? Never, not once. Because when you actually show up in spite of not feeling like it and you start to build momentum, and then you don't want to stop. So that's rule number 1. Show up when you don't feel like it. Number 2, be courageous when you feel fear. Fear is a story. I've heard people say fear stands for false evidence appearing real. I don't know who to attribute that to because I've heard it so many times. I don't know where it came from. But I think that sometimes fear is rooted in our own insecurities. It's rooted in fear of looking bad in front of other people. So maybe we don't want to embarrass ourselves. But when you do the things when you are courageous in spite of your fear, then once again, you're going to have remarkable things happen in your life. But if every time you feel a little tiny bit of fear, you stop yourself, then you're never going to get to the other side. I saw a visual explanation one time. I think it was Robin Sharma, who I'm not a huge fan of, but nonetheless, I want to give credit where credit is due. And he said, imagine there is a wall, and fear is this thing that just kind of bounces up against it. Like imagine like a ball floating in the ocean, and it comes up against this wall, and it just kind of bounces and bounces back and bounces back and bounces back. That's not how you overcome fear. What you do is you have to push through the wall. You don't just kind of tap up against it and then back off. You have to go through it. And when you go through it, something really interesting happens. Things that were once scary are no longer scary. I used to be terrified to drive in Montreal. I used to take the train to downtown Montreal and have somebody on my team pick me up and drive me around the city because I was so afraid to drive in Montreal. The story I told myself is I don't speak French. Their service roads aren't the same as the service roads in Ontario. I don't, you can exit on the highway on the left and on the right, and it's confusing. I'm going to get lost. Like, I could go on and on and on and tell you why I was afraid. And one year I just decided that's it. I'm done. I'm going to learn how to drive in Montreal. I am going to get rid of this fear. I am going to be brave and I'm going to figure it out. And the first time I drove in Montreal, guess what? I brought somebody with me. And did they know where they were going? No, they didn't. But at least I had a partner in crime to help me overcome my fear. And guess what? I'm not afraid to drive in Montreal anymore. So it's amazing the things that you can accomplish when you decide to be courageous in spite of your fear. So that's number 2. Be courageous even when you feel fear, especially when you feel fear. And I'm not talking about the type of fear that, is going to get you harmed in some serious way. Like, I'm not asking you to step into a pen full of alligators because you're afraid of alligators. You don't want to get hurt, but you're going to do it anyway. That's just stupid. There are irrational fears that we all have that hold us back from having the life and business we want. And when you learn how to get over those fears, you'll really start to see a difference happen for you. I promise you. All right. Number 3. This is one of my favorites. Learn how to get back on the wagon. This is really important because we expect perfection from ourselves, and we often throw the baby out with the bathwater. So if we all of a sudden, I don't know, let's say you want to write your book, and so you're committing to writing every single day, and you write every single day for a week, and then one morning you get up and you don't feel like it, so you don't show up, you don't do it. And then the next morning you're like, well, I didn't write yesterday. I'll start again next Monday. And then next Monday comes along and you're like, well, it's been a week since I've written. So I'm just going to, I'll go back to it later. And now you've actually, as John Maxwell would say, you created an excuse so good that you're stopping yourself from moving forward. This is dangerous. Just because you miss a day doesn't mean that everything that you did up to that point is no good anymore. Learn how to get back on the wagon. Learn how to start the streak again. I was on this amazing streak of walking over 10,000 steps for, I think it was almost 40 days. I was so proud of myself. And then I went to my beach house retreat. And I already knew that when I was at my beach house mastermind retreat with my clients, it was going to be hard for me to get 10,000 steps in. But I did get 10,000 steps in a few days that I was there. And then I went back to Georgia and it was freezing cold outside. And I really do not like freezing cold. And so I didn't necessarily show up because I didn't feel like it. It's because it was really uncomfortable, but it was also because I didn't feel like it. I did walking in the house, et cetera, et cetera. But the minute I came back to Florida and the minute we had warmer weather in Georgia, I put my shoes on, I got my butt outside, and I got my 10,000 steps in again. So learn how to get back on the wagon when you have fallen off. You're human. There are going to be times where something happens, sometimes legitimately, that prevents you from doing the thing that you want to do. Sometimes it's a feeling and sometimes it's just practicality. It's impossible for you to do. But that doesn't mean that you have to stop forever. So train yourself to get back on the wagon. Don't give up on you because you didn't do something for a couple of days. All right. What number are we on? 1, 2, 3. Number 4. Do what you say you will when you say you will do it. So when you make a commitment to somebody else and you say, I'm going to send you an email on Monday, send the email on Monday. When you say, I will be there at 5 o'clock, be there at 5 too. When you say you are going to do something, be known as someone who keeps your word. Now, there are times where this might not be possible. Sometimes there are extenuating circumstances that come up. There's an accident on the highway that is going to prevent you from being there on time. Don't wait until you're late to let the person know you're going to be late. Pick up your phone and call them and say, there's an accident on the highway. I have a feeling I might be delayed by 10 minutes. I just wanted to let you know so that you aren't wondering where I am. But what you're also saying is, I see you and I respect you enough to know that you're counting on me to do what I said I would do. And if I'm not able to do that, I have enough integrity and enough courage to tell you and to tell you when I will be there. There's nothing that makes me crazier with my own team is if somebody tells me that something will be done on a certain day and it's not done on that day. It's not so much that it wasn't done on that day, it's that they didn't tell me it wouldn't be done on that day. That to me is irresponsible. So become the kind of person that does what you say you will do when you say you will do it. And if you can't do it, you let somebody know in advance of when you say you will do it, and then you give them a new commitment as to when it will be done, and then make sure you actually do it. Try to always under-promise and over-deliver, and just don't be one of those people that people can't trust to keep your word. All right, next, practice doing hard things regularly. Growth comes from doing hard things. Growth doesn't happen because everything that you do is easy. Growth happens when you try to do things that you've never done before. Growth happens when you have hard conversations that you've been avoiding. Growth happens when you do things that you have not done before, because that's where the growth occurs. If you're staying exactly the same, there is no growth. Think about school as an example. Every single year, you had to do things and learn things that you didn't know the previous year. And you learned how to do those new hard things every single year up until the point that you finished. What are you doing right now in your life that is new? What are you doing that's hard? And what are you doing when something feels hard? Are you letting yourself off the hook? Or are you leaning into it and saying, this is an opportunity for growth because it feels hard. And because it feels hard, I'm going to stick with it. And I might not do it right the first time or the second time or the third time, but I am going to practice being the kind of person that does hard things on a regular basis. Because when you build your muscle of being able to do hard things, then when hard things come up, all of a sudden you're not so intimidated by them because you know you've done hard things before. So practice doing hard things regularly. Now, the next one goes really well with doing hard things. Break things down into smaller pieces so you can get momentum. Sometimes things feel really hard because they're overwhelming. And if you actually take that thing that's hard and overwhelming and you break it down into bite-sized chunks, you can make a lot more progress, like one little step at a time over a longer period of time. I mean, if you write 100 words a day in a book, you will get to 10,000, 100,000 words eventually because you're writing 100 words every day. But if you expect to write 3,000 words a day and you skip all the days, you're never going to get to where you want to be. So don't be afraid to set small goals. It was, I think, Greg McKeown who wrote Essentialism. I heard him say on a Tim Ferriss podcast, like set a low bar and a high bar when you're trying to create a new habit. So set the low bar for I'm going to do this thing for 1 minute a day, and the high bar, I'm going to do it for 5 minutes a day, and stick with that for 10 days. And then increase the amount of time once you've started to get the habit. So break things down so that you can be the type of person who does those things, even if it's for a small period of time repeatedly, because it's that act of doing those things over and over repeatedly that's going to help you to be able to get the momentum and do the things longer. So whatever it is that you're avoiding because it feels really overwhelming, figure out how to break it down into tiny steps and take one step at a time until you get there. All right, number 7, read more books and send more handwritten notes to people. My office is full of books. I have 2 to 3 books on the go at any given time. I have a business book that I typically read every single day. In the morning, I always read a few pages in a business book. Sometimes it's a chapter, depends on how much time I have. Anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes, my nose is in a book every morning. Same thing at night. At night, I typically read historical fiction because it's a little bit more mindless. It doesn't keep me awake at night and doesn't get my business brain thinking, but it gives me something else to read. And both of these things are valuable. Years ago, I heard Zig Ziglar say that he never read a fiction book because it wasn't helping him to learn. But what I have found is fiction books do help me to learn because, especially historical fiction, I learn things about history that I didn't necessarily know. And they give me things to talk about that are not just business. So read more books and send more handwritten notes. When I go to the post office to buy stamps, I buy 100 US stamps and 100 international stamps. And I probably do that at least once a year because I send handwritten notes in the mail on a regular basis. In fact, I have a little spot on my weekly agenda that says cards. And when things happen during the week and I'm like, oh, I should send this person a card, I jot down their name and I jot down the reason. And then once a week, I'll sit down and I'll look at that list and I'll haul out my bin of cards and I'll start to write cards and I will mail them to people. And it feels really good to send somebody a handwritten note. A client of mine who sold her business a few years ago and then had the agreement to continue to work in the business for a few years is finally starting her next business. And so the week that she was wrapping up her quote job before she became a full-time entrepreneur again, I sent her a note in the mail congratulating her on the next chapter because it's so exciting. When somebody on your team does something really nice for you, send them a note and thank them for what they did and tell them why it meant something to you. People have lost the art of letter writing and mailing these handwritten cards. All we get in the mail today is junk. So if you want to stand out and you really want to make people feel a certain way about you because you care about them, practice sending a handwritten note. All right, number 8, I want you to invest in 3 things. And I want you to invest in these 3 things over and over and over and over again. I want it to be part of your lifelong intention to invest in these 3 things. 1, I want you to invest in yourself. And investing in yourself can be as simple as reading a book. It can be taking a course. It can be going to an event. It can be hiring a coach, being in a mastermind. Like it could be taking a language class. It could be going back to college for a course, but it's doing something. You're investing in you, your learning, your growth, so you are becoming a better, stronger person. That's number 1. Number 2, invest in your relationships. Relationships, as Chad Johnson, one of the leaders at Strategic Coach, would say, relationships are inefficient. You don't build relationships just by texting people. You build relationships by picking up the phone and talking to people. You build relationships by getting in the car and getting on a plane and showing up face to face, belly to belly, heart to heart, and being present with people. Not looking over the shoulder to see who else is in the room, but being present with them. Invest in relationships. Your relationships will pay back dividends tenfold, especially over a long period of time. So don't forget to invest in the relationships that matter to you, and don't forget to invest in building new relationships all the time. I talk to so many people that in their older years feel like their friend circle is really, 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 really small. And that's kind of a sad thing because you would think the older we get, the bigger our circle of friends are. And maybe you don't have good friends or a lot of friends, but you can have professional friends, relationships with people in your professional network that also fill you up. So invest in relationships. Be the kind of person that other people can reach out to, and be the kind of person that they will be there for when you reach out to. But that requires you putting emotional deposits into the relationship before you ever try to make a withdrawal. So that takes me back to the previous one. Send more handwritten notes. When you do things like that require effort and you make people feel seen and cared about, then they will go to the wall for you. But most of us are so busy and we're so damn distracted on our phones that we don't do these things anymore. And it's really sad. You can stand out from everyone by investing more in the relationships that matter to you. All right, the next thing I want you to invest in are assets. Think about what you can invest in that is going to help you be more financially secure in the future. Whether it's real estate, whether it's investing in, I don't know, the stock market, your savings account, something. But I like the idea of investing in an asset that is going to help my money make more money. So I love investing in real estate because I know that the value of that home or that property is going to go up over time. I know that if I invest in real estate, I have options. I can rent the real estate, I can live in the real estate, I can flip the real estate. And so I believe in owning assets that make your future better. And I believe the younger you start investing in assets, the better. Because over time, as those assets appreciate in value, you're essentially building a nest egg for your future. So remember, invest in yourself, invest in relationships, and invest in assets. All right, number 9, the final thing that I have for you. Do it, whatever it is you do it for one person, not the masses. And do it to make a difference, not to get attention. Okay? We live in a time where we think that if we don't have 10 million Instagram followers, then what we're doing out there doesn't make a difference. I got to tell you something. I got to look at my phone right now and tell you. I did not feel, number 1, like recording a podcast today. I have a lot of things to do. But there is this woman named Karen Gale on Instagram. And Karen Gale, I love her profile, not one of those Karens, actually posted a story on Instagram and said, if you want a really good no-fluff business podcast, I highly recommend Lisa Larter. And I thought, damn, my podcast is making a difference. It's making a difference for this one person. And that's important. I don't need 100,000 people or 1 million people to listen to my podcast to make a difference. So I'm recording this podcast today in part because I was inspired by one person acknowledging what I'm putting out in the world. So don't do it for the masses. Do it for one person at a time. Create for the one person that you want to make an impact for, and do it to make an impact. Do it to make a difference. Don't do it to get attention. Don't judge yourself by the number of likes, comments, and shares that you get on social media. Because you could have 1,000 comments, likes, and shares that are all superficial. Or you could have no comments, no likes, and no shares, but you could have changed one person's life. And that to me is way more important than the vanity metrics that so many people have become addicted to on social media. So there you have it. I'm going to recap 9 random things that can help you in life and business. Show up when you don't feel like it. Be courageous when you feel fear. Learn how to get back on that wagon. Do what you say you will do when you say you will do it. Practice doing hard things regularly. Break things down into small pieces so you can build momentum. Read more books and send more handwritten notes. Invest in yourself, relationships, and assets. And last but not least, do it for one person, not for the masses, and do it to make a difference, not to get attention. Which of these little lessons resonates the most with you? I would love to hear from you. You know where to find me. You can follow me on Instagram. You can message me on Instagram at Lisa Larter. You can find me on my website, lisalarter.com. But I would love to know which of these things resonates with you, and what's one lesson that you swear by that helps you in life and business be a better person. Share that with me. I'd love to know. Thanks for listening to this episode or watching this episode of She Talks Business, and I will see you again back in a couple of weeks. Sneak peek, I have a couple of really great guest interviews coming up. The world famous Mari Smith is going to sit down and have a conversation with me. And 500 million time Emmy award winning Nick Nanton is also going to sit down and have a conversation with me. And I can't wait to share what they have to say with you, or what they have to say to me with you over the next couple of months. So stay tuned. I've got some fun stuff coming up. Thanks for listening, as always. And if you didn't click the follow button on your favorite podcast platform or leave me a review yet, it means a lot to me when you do those things, one person at a time. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you again next time.